Most people notice the symptoms long before they understand the pattern. It begins as a dull ache at the back of the neck. Your eyes feel strained after long periods looking at screens. You catch your reflection in a camera window or a piece of glass and notice something subtle but important. Your head is no longer stacked directly above your shoulders. Instead, it has drifted forward. Your shoulders begin rounding slightly, and your neck starts carrying more weight than it was designed to handle. What's important to understand is that this shift rarely happens suddenly. It develops quietly. A small lean forward to see a screen more clearly. A slight rounding while concentrating deeply. Hours spent in positions that feel natural while working. Over time, the body adapts to these positions so gradually that the change almost becomes invisible until the discomfort finally gets your attention. When people notice their posture changing, they often assume the cause is personal failure. They believe they simply lack discipline. They assume they need to try harder to sit up straight. But this interpretation misunderstands how the body actually works. Your body is constantly adapting to the environment it spends time in. When you spend hours each day leaning forward toward a screen, your body interprets that position as the new normal, not as a mistake, as an adaptation. Repetition reinforces it. Every hour spent working in the same forward position teaches your nervous system that this posture is the one it should prioritize. The result appears physically as tightness in the upper back, stiffness through the neck, and headaches that often begin somewhere between the shoulder blades. But these symptoms are not evidence of laziness. They are evidence that your body is extremely good at adapting to the demands placed on it. Forward head posture rarely appears randomly. It usually develops through a predictable chain of events. It begins with the environment. A screen positioned slightly lower than eye level. A keyboard that sits just a little too far away. A chair that subtly shifts the way your body rests during work. To compensate, your head moves forward slightly so you can see more clearly and focus more easily. At first, the adjustment feels insignificant, but that small shift begins changing how different muscle groups behave. The front of the body gradually shortens. The deep muscles responsible for stabilizing the neck begin contributing less. Meanwhile, other muscles step in to handle the extra workload. The mid-back becomes stiff. The neck carries more load than before. The upper trapezius muscles begin working overtime. Over time, this compensation creates a feedback loop where the body becomes increasingly efficient at holding the very position that creates the discomfort. At some point, most people try to fix the discomfort. They purchase a new chair. They try a few stretches they saw online. They crack their neck for temporary relief. And often these things help, for a short time. But the improvement rarely lasts. The reason is not that these attempts are wrong. It's that they usually address isolated moments rather than the full pattern shaping posture throughout the day. Posture is not created by a single stretch or a single ergonomic adjustment. It is shaped by everything your body repeats across hours of work. If the overall environment and daily patterns remain the same, the body simply returns to the position it has practiced most often, which means the issue isn't the lack of solutions. It's that the underlying pattern guiding the body never actually changed. There is a simple principle that governs almost every physical adaptation in the human body. The body becomes efficient at what it practices most. This principle explains how athletes improve their performance. It explains how musicians develop precise control of their instruments. And it also explains posture. If your body spends 8 or more hours each day leaning toward screens, focusing intensely, and holding a forward position, your nervous system begins rehearsing that pattern repeatedly. Each repetition strengthens the pattern. Eventually, the posture that once felt unusual becomes the posture that feels normal. The muscles that support the position grow more active. The muscles that would normally counterbalance it become less involved. And over time, the body becomes incredibly efficient at maintaining the exact pattern it has been practicing every day. Not because it wants to create discomfort, but because efficiency is what the body naturally builds. Many people assume the discomfort will eventually disappear when life slows down. After the current project ends. After the busy period passes. After work becomes less demanding. But modern work environments rarely move in that direction. Remote meetings, deep focus blocks, and constant task switching have become standard parts of daily work. These patterns are not temporary. They are structural. Meanwhile, physical tension does more than create discomfort. It drains attention. It consumes mental energy. It quietly reduces the clarity and focus required for high-quality work. And every additional hour spent in the same posture reinforces the body's adaptation to that position, which means the longer the pattern continues uninterrupted, the more deeply it becomes embedded. Imagine finishing a workday without constantly rubbing the back of your neck, standing up from your chair without that familiar stiffness in the first few steps, looking at your reflection and recognizing a more balanced head position again. These outcomes rarely result from dramatic interventions. Instead, they tend to emerge from subtle shifts repeated consistently over time. Small changes in how the body distributes tension, small changes in how muscles contribute during movement. When these small shifts accumulate across weeks, the body begins organizing itself differently. And when the body reorganizes its patterns of movement and support, posture begins to change naturally as a consequence. Not through force, through adaptation. One of the most common misunderstandings about posture is the belief that it is simply a position you must hold. People are told to sit up straight, pull their shoulders back, keep their chin tucked. But posture is not actually a pose. It is behavior. It reflects the way your body interacts with its environment over time. If your environment consistently encourages a forward position, your body will gradually move forward. If your environment supports balance, your body will tend toward balance. That means posture cannot be understood purely as something you consciously control. It emerges from the context surrounding your body, the setup of your workspace, the patterns you repeat, and the way your muscles interact throughout the day. When posture is understood as behavior rather than position, the entire conversation around it changes. The most meaningful shifts in posture rarely come from focusing on one element in isolation. They come from integration, different parts of the body working together again instead of compensating for one another. Areas that have become restricted begin contributing mobility again. Muscles that have been underused begin participating in stabilization. Strength develops in ways that support the body's natural alignment. When these elements start interacting properly, the body redistributes the workload it carries. Tension stops accumulating in the same locations. The neck no longer carries responsibilities that belong elsewhere. And instead of constantly correcting posture, the body begins organizing itself more efficiently, not because it is being forced, but because the system as a whole is working together again. The final shift in perspective is understanding that posture should never depend entirely on willpower. Trying to hold perfect posture throughout the day is exhausting. It requires constant awareness, constant effort, and constant correction. Eventually, attention drifts, and the body returns to what feels easiest. A more sustainable approach changes the underlying conditions instead. The body develops the capacity to support itself. The workspace supports the body's natural movement patterns, and over time, the more balanced position becomes the path of least resistance. Not something you force, something that naturally emerges. Because posture was never meant to be something you hold through effort. It was meant to be something your body lives in comfortably.